And so, Thomas, would you like to just, you've got the beautiful chateau over your shoulder in the background there. So would you like to just give us a brief introduction to Cognac Frapin?
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us into this Zoom call. So you already know the different cru and the Grand Champagne area, but I will just give you a few reminders, and then we will speak about the Frapin vineyard. So I will make a quick switch now. So I'm in the middle of Frapin vineyard, so in the heart of Grand Champagne, and Grand Champagne, as you know, is the first cru of Cognac area. So Grand Champagne is the first cru because of the subsoil. So the subsoil of Grand Champagne is filled with crumbly chalk and limestone, and these two elements are very important for the water supply of the vines. So it will give the possibility to the roots of our vines to go deeper until 10 meters to find water, humidity. So that's why Grand Champagne is the first cru. And as you know, it's a little bit hilly here. So it's not flat like in Cognac or in the other cru. It's because of the layers of limestone and crumbly chalk who raised up millions of years ago. So, and Grand Champagne, the name Champagne is the same than in Champagne area in the north of France, near Épernay, because it's the same kind of subsoil. So Grand Champagne, first cru of Cognac, and according to the BNIC, the National Office of Cognac, Grand Champagne will give a wine with the best aromatic richness and the finest eau de vie at the end. So at Frapin, we start at the best place because we are located exclusively into the heart of Grand Champagne. So 240 hectares of vines in the middle of Grand Champagne in one block. So it's the biggest estate of Grand Champagne in one block. And one important thing, Patrice will explain this later, we manage all the process internally at Frapin. So all our cognac come from our grapes. So we don't buy grapes, we don't sell grapes. Everything comes from the vineyard. So from the vineyard till the bottling. Concerning the grapes variety, so we use Uni Blanc. Uni Blanc into the vineyard, like 99% of Cognac area, because Uni Blanc is more regular, more resistant, and Uni Blanc has a little bit of acidity, and natural acidity is interesting for us because it will play a natural conservative to keep the quality of our wine until the distillation process. So generally, during 3 weeks in September, we harvested all the grapes, and we got approximately 3 million liters of grape juice, so 3 million liters of wines. And our wine generally is between 10 and 10.5 degrees, so it's a little bit higher than the competitors, because generally we finish to harvest a little bit later. So we want to finish like this because we want a lot of fruit into the bottle at the end. So we need fruit at the beginning. That's why we will get more sugar and more alcohol when we will turn the grape juice into wine. So that's it concerning the vineyard and the terroir at Frapin. Now you can see I'm in front of the Chateau Fontpinaud. So Chateau Fontpinaud is in the middle of the vineyard. Some of you already visited it. You maybe had a lunch or dinner. So it's a public relation tools for us. The family doesn't live inside anymore. Today, the chateau, as you can see it now, was finished in 1872 with the 3 towers and the 3rd floor by Henri Frapin. But before, it was only the main building with only two floors. So, but it's a beautiful, gorgeous chateau we have here in the middle of in the heart of Grand Champagne.
It looks like something out of a fairy tale, Thomas.
That's it. No, it's the perfect place to visit and to understand Frapin.
And so the vintages that we are going to taste through today, we have 4 vintages, and just for our listeners, we will be starting with the 1992. Please feel free to pour all 4 samples so that they may develop in the glass. So starting with the 1992, but all of the vintage cognacs are coming from the estate that we can see that you're standing in the middle of right now, right?
That's it. Patrice will explain it, the terroir of the vintages. But yes, it's one part where am I actually. So I will let Patrice explain this, and I will quickly go to the distillery because we are distilling. So I will join us just after.
So jump in your car and let's pass to Patrice. Patrice, we're going to talk a little about the distillation and aging, and with particular reference first for the 1992.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So as Thomas said before, the beginning of the story of Frapin is the terroir and the vineyard. So we have to pay attention to the vine growing. So we develop many kinds of techniques. A part is a traditional way. Another part of the technique is it's a new knowledge. You know, now we analyze the leaves, the soil to understand the feeding, etc. But we pay attention to have a good vine and a good grape before picking grape, of course. So welcome to the tasting of many vintages. So the first one is 92, 26 years old. The alcohol content is 40.5% alcohol. It's not 40. It's a little bit more. This vintage in 92 was a big harvest. It's a lot of grape, and the alcohol content it's not too much as this year, for example, and with a lot of acidity. It's a characteristic of the year of 92. I knew that because I arrived in 91, even if I'm seem very younger. It was in 91 when I arrived here. Okay, so before tasting, you know, part of you know that I'm really keen on complexity. It's not a good word, but what is complexity? Complexity, when you have something very rich with a lot of aroma, everybody can find the flavor with his own souvenir. To have the complexity, you need to have not too much wood, because if you have too much wood, it may be good sometimes, but not complex because everybody can find the wood. So my aim is to have something not too woody and very complex. And you have to understand also that I consider when you are in Grand Champagne, when you distill with a lees, I will come back about that, you need to age more than normal to develop something good. The time is very, very, very important. Okay, so if you want to start the tasting,
I actually have some of this left over from June, so I'm sniffing the bottle.
Okay. So you know, the best part of the range is a blend for Frapin, but we have many vintages. I consider it's really a Frapin style because it's you know, it's an artisanal way, made by hand or made by nose, not a too big quantity, but I don't produce vintages every year. I have not in 80, 81, 84, 87, because I have not at the beginning or during the aging. If the tasting is the same as Fontpinot, for example, it's not very interesting to put in a market. So if we have a vintage in a market, it's because it's good, I think, but also different than the rest of the range to bring something different, you know. So this one, but all vintages is different. Of course, it's the same idea as the wine, but it's also Frapin. So it's the same line, different but same line. So if you taste this one, of course, no aggressivity, long aging, but also a lot of flavor. Very fine. And after that, everybody can find something because it's very rich. So for me, it's now it's prune, licorice, a lot of evolution.
Patrice, a question has come in saying, do
Yes,
you know at harvest if it is going to be a vintage, or is it not until the maturation is underway?
I think it's not the same maturation as this year, for example, because you know, as Thomas said before, we can't use sulfur during the vinification, so very often the people like a lot of acidity to conserve the wine before the distillation. I'm keen on acidity, of course, for the same reason. But I consider to find the fruit in the eau de vie, I need to have a fruit before. So if it's too acid, it's not. It's a sort of maturation of a leek, you know. And this year in '92, I remember it was not maturation as today. But you know what is important, I said every time, is a result. So I think this one, even if it's not too much mature, it's a good one, I think. So it's a characteristic of Frapin, fine elegance for me, of course. And some orange flower, you know, it's very complex, so everybody can find something. And one of the characteristics of long aging after distillation with a lees is the aftertaste. Very, very long aftertaste. So I hope that everybody agree.
If anybody does wish to make any comments, you are welcome to unmute yourself if you would like to, or do pop comments into the chat. I am keeping an eye on the chat, but I can tell from my little bottle that we had back in June, yeah, those orange notes, they were very prominent in June. And they're lingering. I will say that yesterday I actually finally finished the sample yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
And it definitely has that sort of slightly preserved comfy orange for me, and a real lovely roundness. But like you say, always this Frapin elegance, very focused.
But you know, this kind of tasting is very personal, because another time, if it's complex, the aim is for you it's orange, but for the other it's figs, for the other and it's not very important, the fruit. What is important is the complexity, and that everybody can find something, and also have pleasure, because I think to finish the aim is to have some pleasure. So
it's very important in these days. Sorry, question has just come in from Andrew. Can Patrice expand on alcohol of base wine question? Normally said to be the lower the better, more acidity the better. But Thomas suggested this was not the case for Frapin. Is this a Frapin exception, or is the question more complex than it's more normally made out to be?
You know, I'm not a teacher. It's my opinion. I consider I need more maturation, but you know, then I take risk. I take risk for the conservation of the wine, because the acidity is not very high, you know. But you know, after Mr. Pasteur, Mr. Lavoisier, we know more about yeast and bacteria. So the characteristic of Frapin is to have my hand on a bowl. So it's easier to control the quality of the wine in Frapin. It's completely different for a negociant. You know, in Cognac area, a lot of people are negociant and buy many vine and eau de vie from vine grower. So it's not the same idea to control, you know. So Frapin, I prefer to take risk to conserve the wine, but to develop something different. And then we have to adapt the distillation to this kind of wine, because the alcohol content is completely different, you know. And so we start to picking grape generally in the end of September. You know, when I was young, my parents was vine grower, and we started picking grape in the middle of October to finish in the beginning of November. I'm not a specialist of the climate like Mr. Trump, but I think something happened. Now we start at the end of September, and this year we started in the beginning of September. So you know, probably something happened. Just some word about this crop. This crop was a fantastic crop because after a special summer, a lot of sunshine, we have really a big crop with a big quality. It's something exceptional with a good climate during the vintage. Okay, it's something exceptional. So I come back to the vinification. Of course, if the alcohol content is a little bit different, we have to control many things because we can't use sulfur. So it's a specific vinification. And I just want to give you just one example because we control everything, Frapin. So is it possible to develop a special techniques to try to produce something different? And for example, during the vinification, for the distillation, I'm keen on the lees. I want to distill with the lees, but I'm keen on two kinds of lees. The lees from the yeast, so alcoholic fermentation, but also the lees from the pulp. So for Frapin, there is no settling during the vinification. You know, everywhere they wait many hours to have a sedimentation. They pump the clear juice. No, I want to have all, except if we have botrytis, because I'm keen on two kinds of lees. So it's just an example to show you we use different techniques. I don't know if the other use also, but it's my opinion.
Thank you. I hope that clarifies things a little more for you, Andrew. I'm going to move now because I can see Thomas is in the distillation center, in the distillery. Yes. So, Thomas, show us around.
So, here is the Frapin distillery. So we have 6 still, four into this room, and 2 at the end in the other place. So we are distilling since the middle of October this year because, as Patrice said, it's a very big harvest. And I will let Patrice explain it if you want, Patrice. If you want me to show the lees, for example.
Can I just check? Sorry, can I just check? Can people see? I can see Richard and Andrew. Can you see Thomas's video? Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay.
So one important thing, of course, is a distillation with a lees. I consider if you are in Grand Champagne and want to produce something like Frapin, you need to distill with a lees. So you know, distilling with a lees, it's not the easier way because the lees may be burned in a pot still. So we have a special system to wash a pot still with hot water, and many times per weeks, the guy who distill have to go in a pot still without fire, of course, to wash the fat acid around the pot still, but not all the fat acid. You know, it's not easy to distill with a lees, but not easy to distill. To have a good distillation with a lees. So it's a very technical way. But I think it's very, very important also. What is important also, we use specific techniques for the distillation to adapt the technique to the wine with more alcohol, of course. And it's the reason why there is no automatic system for Frapin, no computer. Our computers this year are Jérémy, Rémi, Mathieu, and Jean-Paul. I mean all the distillation, but also between picking grape to the bottling, everything is through the tasting. All the big decision, of course, we analyze also the cognac and the wine, but the big decision is through the tasting. So the guy who distills cut through the tasting when the AV steam arrived after the bonne chauffe. So this one is a brouillis. Voilà. Beautiful. Okay, good. So the second millésime is 90. Hop là. Voilà. 90.
Excellent.
Hop
So
là.
Kate, you can switch to Patrice, to the screen of Patrice, if you want.
Okay.
Okay, so 90, 27 years old. You know, when you speak about a vintage, you have to also speak about the aging. So 27 years old, and the alcohol content is about 41.3% alcohol. 90, just before I arrived here, it was a very early year, so the vine start to grow very early, and it was, remember, a very hot summer, very dry and hot summer. So a good year everywhere, I think, also at Bordeaux, with a good maturation, because I found it, we pick grape, the average of the alcohol content was 10.3% alcohol for the total of the crop at this time. And generally, we are around 10.5, between 10 and 11 in general, sometimes more, but it's not a problem. It's not a problem for us, of course. So if you want to start the tasting, it's the same idea, different than 92, but still Frapin, same idea, very fine, elegant, floral. Some apricot, orange. You can find every time, it's not too woody, but you can find the wood. You know, the color comes from the wood, so the wood exists, of course, but not too woody. So a small vanilla also from the wood, but many flavors like this. Very good balance, fine, elegant, long aftertaste. And you know what is interesting? It's also the evolution. For me, when you taste a cognac, you need some emotion. And a part of emotion comes from the evolution. So the tasting now, it will be different in 1 hour or half an hour. So sometimes the flavor now will be different in a few moments. So it's interesting. It's I think it's a part of a good tasting. Licorice also, it's many things.
So a question has come in, and I think we'll cover this in more detail in a second, because I have a feeling that Thomas, as our roaming reporter, is going to pop up elsewhere. But the wood treatment we'll start to talk a little bit about the cellar, and the wood treatment for the vintage cognacs, is this always the same, or do you have a different regime for every single one? Okay, so
it's it's sometimes different. You know, so the vintage, for example, there is the aging, I come back, but also we have 240 hectares, but different kinds of cru of Grand Champagne, quite the same, but a little bit different. And this one, for example, came from Les Gabloteaux. Les Gabloteaux, it's a part of the vineyard around the distillery, you know. About the aging. So you know the cœur de bonne chauffe after the distillation, the part we use for the cognac, it's about, for Frapin, generally 71.8, around that. So it's translucid, we have to age its cask. For Frapin, we have 3 levels of aging in cask. The first level is a new cask, I consider cask are new during 5 years, and during this period there is a lot of element can go to the wood, to the cognac. So tannin, vanilla, polyphenol, etc. Second level is middle cask, between 5 years to 15 years, and to finish we age in old cask, and sometimes very old and sometimes a long time. And you know, Frapin, to age also, a big characteristic is different cellars. So we have many kinds of cellars in two big groups: humid cellars downstairs, we lose less and more water, and dry cellar upstairs under the roof, we lose more and more water compared with the alcohol. So if you age downstairs and upstairs, it will be different. Very often, and it's okay.
Patrice, can I just say, I think we're spotlighting Thomas, who is now in the cellars. So Thomas, I think you can show us.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you should now be able to see Thomas in the cellars.
I mean,
so Patrice, sorry, I interrupted. I think oh dear. I suspect our reception isn't quite so good in the cellar.
So this one is a cellar of the new cask. Every time the cellar of the new cask is a humid cellar because we lose a lot. If you return, Thomas, the cask, the new cask of the year, we put the new cask of the year, as you can see here. We just receive it here.
So these are brand new. Okay. Yeah, very shiny.
Yeah, because I consider cask are new during 5 years. It's my consideration. And this part, a part of this part is a new one. Yeah? Okay. And then Thomas probably goes to a dry cellar. So we have a lot of dry cellar, not only one, upstairs, under the roof, and especially during summer, a part of spring, a part of autumn, but especially during summer, it's warmer than downstairs, so we lose more. But losing is also a sort of concentration, of course, and we lose more water compared with the alcohol. It's a phenomenon of osmosis. So it's a way to have a specific quality in my range. And to answer to your question, very often, and 92 and 90 also, come from dry cellar. The tasting of these vintages is typical of a dry cellar. You know, not too round, but something a little bit straight like this. Shock, fine, elegant, and so like a diamond, you know, like this. It's dry.
And Thomas, we can see the barrel in front of you has the seal from the BNIC.
Yes,
there we go.
Yes,
there we are.
It's you know, we have a lot of at the beginning we have a lot of vintages because sometimes we broke it, you remember, to put in the normal blend if it's the same as Fontpinot or the same as voilà. So it's so to produce a vintage, I make a selection of part of between the distillation and the end of March. And then, if I want to produce a vintage, I have to call the BNIC because we have to prove the origin. So Frapin, we worked with BNIC, and then they arrive and they put seals on the cask. And every time we have to take a sample, we have to pump in the other cellar, we have to make a bottling, we have to call them, and we have to pay also, of course. But we can prove through this system that the origin is the good vintage. It's a little bit heavy, expensive and heavy, but it's a way to prove.
So the regime for the eau de vie would be to begin their aging in a younger cask,
yes.
So a cask up to 5 years. Then yes. After that, they go to your roux casks, which are your middle-aged casks.
Yes.
Which are what, 5 years to, is it 15 or 20? I can't remember.
There is no rules. You know, I have only one rule. It's to taste everything. It's each 6 months. Everything is not each cask, because we have a lot, but each big row, you know. And then it depends. If there is for me not enough tannin from the new cask, I spend more time in a middle cask, you know. So I adapt every time the aging to the tasting and to the aim at the final. So I have no real rules.
Recipe,
you know,
yeah.
I said before, the 92 and 90 and also 88 is dry cellar. But you know, is it also possible to have a part of vintage in dry cellar, a part of the same vintage in humid cellar, and make a blend between the both? It's not the case of this one, but is it also possible? Because, you know, never forget that what is important, there is only things very important, is a result in a glass for the customer and for everybody. So after that, I can explain why and the way to do. But what is important is the result.
Do you want to move on to the 1988?
Okay, 1888. Okay, change the glass. Okay, 88. So this vintage came from Chépier. Chépier, it's the opposite of the distillery. You know, it's another part. There is more clay in this part. So it's still Frapin, Grand Champagne, but a little bit different than Les Gabloteaux, for example, the vintage before. 88, it was a very small crop. Very small crop, not a lot of grape, because there is not a lot of grape at the beginning, but the characteristic of this year was the disease. There was a lot of disease and mildew. I don't know if it's a good word in English, but so we look. There is not a lot of grape at the beginning, but we lose a part also during this disease. We started to pick grape 10 of October. You know, it's not early at this time.
That's late, yeah.
But what is interesting, and it's the reason why probably I made a vintage, during the harvest, it was a very good weather. With a lot of sunshine and hot weather, it was a good condition to pick grape. The alcohol content is 41.5, and it's 25 years old. You know, all the vintages is more than 20. One generation. Very often, the first question of everybody is how old is the cognac? For the vintages, there is no problem on the label. So it's a good answer. But I think the good question is not how old. The good question is, how do you age during this period? I mean, if you age like Frapin, you change the cellar, you put the alcohol, the distilled water very slowly to make the alcohol down, you make aeration, you start blending before the hand, etc. After 25 years old, the tasting of the cognac is more than the real age. At the same time, if I age the same cognac in a big vat like this, in high level alcohol, without aeration, with no water, nothing, after 25 years old, probably the tasting is many years, not a lot. And the both have 20. So you know, what is important, it's the result and how do you age more than how many years. But the time is also important. So 1988, I love it. You understand, it's the same line, different than the other, but it's not completely different. It's the same. Why? Because of the terroir. It's the terroir and the technique. Eh? But here, for me, there is more dry fruit. You know, nuts, something like this. But also prune, many things. Honey, let's see. But like the other, it's a fine, smooth, you know, fine like this, straight. Characteristic of the dry cellar. And
it's a while since I tasted this, but for me, this is always the one that is very narrow. and elegant and high-toned. Less kind of fat in the mouth, but very almost like a razor blade.
Yes. And you know the long aftertaste, you know, with a flavor. You know, we speak about a rancio charentais. Rancio charentais. It's not easy to explain, but it's a sort of small oxidation. You can find in a Porto, in a old Sauterne. And it's a sort of oxidation. Remember a tobacco, a cigar box, you know, it's and very pleasant, very, very long aftertaste.
When I first came to Cognac, to taste Cognac, I found this the most difficult of the vintages because of its complexity and its length. And it's taken me a while to kind of learn to appreciate it. But now I think it's beautiful.
In the philosophy, I love to produce vintages because it's really Frapin, you know, it's artisanal way, and I can play with humid and dry cellar, and you know, with the alcohol content, because if the alcohol content is different, the quality will be different, of course. You know, it's and what is funny, for example, and it's the case for 79 after, is it possible to have the same vintage after 20 years old, 25, 30, 35, you know? And every time is different because more aging. So is it possible after that to compare for the, I think vintages is for the people, for not a professional, but people who know a little bit cognac, you know? And is it possible to compare, oh yes, it's, no, it's,
so on the point of, can you have a vintage with two different levels of age, shall we move to the 1979? I'm aware that time also is getting on for people, so shall we finally unveil again the 1979?
1979. Alors 1979.
And Joel has just messaged what a vintage. I think Joel might have a vested interest because I think that is Joel's birth year. You're so young,
Alors,
Joel.
1979, you know, it was the first vintage for Frapin. We started to produce vintage in 79. I was not here, but it was the first one. So we produced by the passé many 79 after 15, 20, 25, etc. And this bottle is the rest of 79. It's finished after. We finish it. So it's 79, 40 years old. 40 years old is something not too bad. Huh? It comes from Chepier, you know, the same area as 88. And then this one is something exceptional, like the rest, of course. But here it's a sort of, how do you say, of a firework. Like this, you know? Huh? Candied fruit, it's a apricot. Little bit spicy. Bon. And rancio, you know, more Grand Champagne distilled with the lees, more you age, generally, more you age, more you develop the complexity. So after 40 years old, you know, it's quite the same period as the extra for Frapin about the aging, even if it's different. Huh? So after 40, it's develop something exceptional. But you know, even if it's 40 years old, it's not too woody. It's not heavy. It's a sort of, I don't know the word in English. I have a problem with my vocabulary, but it's...
Try it in French and I'll see if I can translate.
C'est presque léger, you know.
It's light. It's
yes, light. Yeah. Not light. It's not a good word, but you know, it's fine. It's not like this. It's voilà.
Excellent. Oh. When you released the 79 the first time round, how many years did it did it have?
I think the first one was after 15 years aging.
Okay.
Many
So it
years
would have
ago.
been 96, something like that, that you released it? So,
Yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
it was a small quantity in a half bottle. Yeah. But now it's finished. But really, you know, I follow everything. And many months ago, I tasted this one. And I say, oh, exceptional. So we have to. Okay. So I hope that everybody know more about the vintage of Frapin now. And have some pleasure to taste.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's been fascinating, and thank you to Thomas, who has been running around the vineyards and the cellars and the distillery to show us all of this.
You're welcome.
Before we go, I just want to give a quick mention. I'm sure everybody online knows about the anniversary for Frapin this year, but it is an important anniversary for the Frapin family this year. So Patrice, could you talk a little bit about the 750 anniversary for Frapin and some of the things that you have done to celebrate?
So Frapin is still a family business, the same family, even if the name disappeared, but it's the same family. And very long story because they arrived in 1270, so 750 years. It's exceptional. Huh? Long story, but also very rich story for the people because, for example, the mother of François Rabelais, a famous writer in France and Europe in the 15th century, was a Frapin. Is the reason why. So we have we have a feather, like you say,
a feather, yeah.
Because it's the symbol of the writer for François Rabelais. Before the feather, it was Discotevorm. And this Discotevorm, it was Louis XIV who gave this Discotevorm to his apothecary. He was a Frapin. So, you know, it's a long story, but also very rich story. So it's something, this anniversary. So we decide to produce a special decanter, 21st decanter for 21st generation. And for the first time, the family and Jean-Pierre Cointreau authorized to take a demijohn from the paradise, one of the paradise, we have many, to make a special bottling only with this cognac. You know, sometimes I use a part of demijohn to make a blend for the high quality. But it's the first time I use one demijohn for this bottling. So it's not, I don't create a blend, I just choose a special demijohn. Okay. Through the tasting, the flavor description, it seems to be a very old one. You know, it's a demijohn. We put in demijohn between 60 years and 95. So it's more than this age, but probably more also. So it's a very old one. It's impossible to say really the age. So this demijohn, we put it in a Thomas.
I can see Tom. I'm not sure if we can spotlight onto. Can people see Thomas's video? Thomas is in front of the beautiful carafe of one of these. I hesitate. It's not a bottle. It is a carafe. It's made by
Cristal de Baccarat. And the box, we have not the box here, but I can show you the box. The box is a special, beautiful one made by Elie Bleu. Elie Bleu, it's in Paris, and it's a specialist of luxury box, and especially for the cigar box. So all the piece here, it's a small piece of wood. You know, it's something incredible.
It's marquetry, isn't it? It's called marquetry.
Yes. It's fantastic. It's a lot of job. So the people who want to buy this kind of carafe, you know, they buy a part of the story of Frapin. and they have to wait because if you put an order, you have to receive the carafe after 8 months. So you know we are better than Ferrari. Ferrari is 2 years. You know.
Well, that's amazing. And I think. Oh, Thomas is actually just by you, isn't he, Patrice? I think I can work out from the fact. Okay, that's fantastic.
The second thing, we produce also for half year a special bottle of Chateau Fompino with the anniversary here. So it's the same blend, but it's a special series for the birthday, for the anniversary. You know. So
this is for people that can't afford the full deluxe Ferrari. They can still have a taste of the history of Frapin with it, and it's the Fompino Exo that just has the special edition bottling, isn't it? That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Patrice, and to Thomas for running around the grounds this morning. I hope everybody has enjoyed the tour and the talk, and doesn't quite make up for not being out there with you, but it goes some way. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, for listening in this morning. And if you do have any, yes, sorry, Thomas.
Just to finish, I will just show you quickly the demijohn.
This is the demijohn. So
this is the original where we make 21 decanters as a tribute to the 23rd generations of Frapin.
Look at that! Wow.
Ah ouais, super.
Fantastic.
So inside our paradise cellar.
Yeah, I prefer to see this on screen than be there because the spiders frighten me too much. But that looks amazing. Those barrels are incredible.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you everybody. Thank you for the tour, Thomas.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Bye bye.
And thank you everybody.
Bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.